And welcome back to another video from me, That Running Girl. In today's video I'm going to be talking about my 20th marathon that I ran on Sunday and how I achieved a PB at that, and basically the things that I did during the marathon that made me have a really positive experience, meaning that I didn't hit the wall and I ran a PB, and touch wood, I'm not injured at all, and just feeling really good about it really. So, first things first, what time did you run that, running girl? I ran 3:22:59 in the Stratford or Shakespeare Marathon in Warwickshire on Sunday. So 3:22:59 was my chip time, so that's the time that I crossed the mat, and 3:23:01 was my gun time, so that's obviously the time that, you know, when the gun goes off to when you go through the finish line. So that is a PB by about 34 seconds, and I haven't run that fast since 4 years ago when I ran 3:23 at the Abingdon Marathon, which is a completely flat marathon. So it's really encouraging that I ran 3:22:59 on a really hilly course, because Stratford Marathon is not a flat course by any means, and yes, I just feel really positive about it, and it's just so nice to be back to where I was 4 years ago, because I do feel like I had a bit of a kind of stunted period, not so much in the other distances but especially in the marathon, and I wasn't able to put in the kind of distance on the longer runs because I just felt so ill, and during the marathon I always had to walk run from about 20 miles onwards, and that in a marathon just is never ideal. So yes, I've never really run a whole marathon, to be honest. I always, with the last 10k, I always just loser about and tend to kind of walk jog the last 10k, and I think a lot of people do feel like that, and a lot of people just kind of do that because a lot of people get to 20 miles and their pace is, spot on for what time they're trying to achieve. But then that last 10k, it really is just the hardest part of the marathon. And unless you've kind of trained over 20 miles, I do think that that's always going to be the most challenging part. So prior to the race on Sunday, I had done an 18-mile training run the week before. And I wouldn't ordinarily do an 18-mile training run the week before. But the reason I did that was because I changed marathon courses. So I was going to run the Milton Keynes Marathon, which is on Bank Holiday Monday, so that's next Monday. But I actually decided to do Stratford instead, which was last Sunday, for various reasons, but the main one being it's a lot quieter than Milton Keynes, and I've run it 4 or 5 times before. This time was my 5th time running it. So it just really appealed to me because the kind of quietness aspect of the course means that I'm going to have less anxiety, and I'm going to basically run a stronger run and have a better performance. In an ideal world, that was the kind of scenario that was in my head. So this is the marathon medal that I got when I crossed the finish line, and it has a nice Shakespeare quote on it, and it says, "There be some sports are painful, and their delight in them sets off." And it has a little man on like waves, which actually look like giant mushrooms, but I think they're meant to be waves. Anyway, so I'm going to go 4 reasons that made my run as strong as it was. And I'm going to try and do these before my partner gets back from work, because if he comes in the front door, it's going to be really awkward trying to edit this and then slot it together so it doesn't look like I'm back to the video. Because I really hate it when I have to edit the video and it just looks really disjointed. It really kind of annoys me and gets to my OCD self. So the first thing that I think really helped me during the marathon was feeling just so physically fit and able prior to me running it. So as you know, I've been feeling really ill for a number of years, really. For a number of years, I think I've had a really bad iron deficiency. And it's funny because it didn't really show up on blood tests, but when you have a blood test at the doctor's surgery, they don't generally take into consideration the needs of an athlete, the needs of a marathon runner, and the kind of needs as a long distance runner, and what you need, you know, in training and racing. It's kind of different from when they're just looking at like a typical normal person that like works out moderately for 3 times a week. And so, as you know, I was taking that iron supplement because I had the breathing issues and the exhaustion. And since taking that, I just feel like a completely different person. And I don't think I would have run as well during the marathon had I not been taking that, because I just feel so much stronger physically and mentally. Another thing that has helped me tremendously was getting my fueling right. So this is the Power Bar Energize Banana Punch flavor, and I took half of this on during the marathon. I didn't take any more than that because I'm generally quite a small person. I don't really need much more than that. It was making me a bit sick because anything makes me sick, but it didn't make my stomach sick. But I thought it would just, you know, make me a bit sick if I took on any more. So I took on half of this, which is like this much. And yes, that I didn't hit the wall once, and I just felt so positive and strong. And even though it was a hilly course, I just felt like whatever you put in front of me on this 26.2 mile course, I'm just going to get over it. And it was just such a great space to be in. And I also was 5th woman overall in the marathon, and I would have been 4th woman, but a woman passed me at the 23 mile mark. And at the 23 mile mark, I just had nothing left to give, because even though I was still consistently running sort of a decent pace, and I wasn't flailing or anything, I didn't have that kind of competitive fight in me at 23 miles in. Maybe a little later down the line, when if I do some more longer runs than in a few years, I might do, but at that point I didn't have that fight in me, so I just let her have it. It's not like I let her have it because I didn't have anything left, but you know what I mean. The last thing that really helped me, not during the marathon, but before the marathon, in the lead up to the marathon, is reading this book. Now, I've been reading this book for a number of months, and I'm like 87 pages in, so I'm about a third of the way through the book. And it's called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment. And the thing is with this book, it's actually, I don't want to say it's a religious book, because it is in places, but the majority of it isn't, because I'm not a religious person, so I don't believe in any of that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't have bought it if it was just solely a, means to get you into religion. It's not that kind of thing at all, but there are sort of religious references and metaphors in there that you might, like me, think, oh, I'm not sure whether I can trust that because you just said that. But you kind of just have to skip over those parts, which then they're littered throughout the book, but there's not too many of them, so it's kind of tolerable. So The Power of Now basically teaches you to live and appreciate the present more, and it kind of it encourages you to leave behind the past and not focus on the future. So it encourages you to think, for example, in a marathon, if you're sort of 15 miles in and you can't wait to hit the sort of 18 mile mark or the 20 mile mark, because then you're thinking there's only 10k left. It makes you appreciate the here and now and the present moment, because you can't really appreciate the future because it's not here yet. You only actually have what's here, in the present moment, here and now. And it's just, I can't put into words how sort of enlightening it's been, and it's really helped with my anxiety issues as well. It's helped a little with my kind of depression when I get depressed, but because my depression is such a sporadic and powerful thing, it hasn't helped tremendously with it, but it's helped with my focus incredibly in races. And I think the marathon on Sunday is the first marathon that I have run since reading this book, and it's very difficult to get in the mindset of this sort of focusing on the present and now, and you know, being grateful for this moment that you have in time, because you're never going to get this moment back. And when you first read it, when I first started reading it, I was just thinking, oh, this is such a load of rubbish, and oh, how do people actually, like, you know, believe all this stuff? But once you start reading it and it starts sort of being absorbed a bit more, it does kind of, you just get into a certain mindset, and it just kind of, I don't know, it's just sort of more natural to think that way. So I cannot recommend that book enough. I might do a review on it actually. But those things together helped me a lot during the marathon. What also helped me is not going out too fast. So I have this problem with all my distances in races, that I go out too hard in the first few miles, and you can generally get away with it for a 5k or a 10k or even a 10 mile or half, because there's not that many miles left. But in a marathon, if you screw up the first few miles, or even if you screw up the first like 10k or half of it, you're going to suffer later on. And not only are you going to suffer physically and mentally, but your time's going to suffer as well. So I felt like I really didn't do that this time. I mean, my first mile was the quickest mile of the entire race, but it wasn't like a ridiculous mile. I think it was something like 7:16. So me running 3:22:59, that equates to 7.44 minute miles for the entire race. And even though I ran the first half of the race slightly quicker than the second half, I felt like because I was sensible and I ran it with this kind of conservative pace, I didn't blow up in the second half, and I had enough energy, you know, with my iron and with this and with my focus, to run the last half of the race. And like I said, it was so nice running the last half of the race and not actually just walk running. And I was actually passing people in the last half of the race, and I've never done that before in a marathon, so it was a really, really encouraging feeling. So now I'm just focusing on resting and recovering. I didn't run yesterday, I just took it really easy and had a nice hot bath and a lot of nice food and rest. And today I ran 5k, just easy at 7:19 minute mile, and that was nice. And you know, I'm not doing much running wise for the rest of the week, because it's really important, even if you feel like completely fine physically and mentally, injuries can just come out of nowhere. So it's really important to just, you know, ease off and give your body the time it needs to heal and repair itself after the damage of the marathon, because the marathon does damage your body and your biomechanics. So you just need to take it easy for a bit. So if anyone ran a marathon on Sunday, whether that was Stratford or London, I know a lot of people did London, a lot of my friends did London, or Blackpool Marathon, or any other races, I really hope you had a good race, and I hope you got a PB. I hope that this video isn't too long, because I don't want to edit it too much. My next video is probably going to be a review of this power bar, which I keep mentioning, or a review of this book, because I feel like I kind of just skimmed over it there and it didn't really make much sense. But hopefully you can look it up and, you know, find the reviews for yourself and see whether it's going to help you or not. But remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I post pictures of the food I eat and what I wear to run in, and my training. I post like my daily runs. So it's really nice to have people following me on there. I will insert the links here, and I hope you're all running well, and I'll see you in the next video.